I'm like, I know my talent can change the whole program. That's just the type of confidence I have. So for me to come here and do that, it's just like me proving my point. Like, people already feel like I'm not good enough in general. So for me to come here and play my part and do my part to change the whole program around from 4 years later, is like, it means a lot.
Like, I always pride myself on being, just being able to step up in big games, when my team needs me. And I'm a very competitive person. I feel like if you want to play at, the highest level, you have to be a super competitive person and just will do whatever it takes to win.
Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects, repping the Scots from Alma College. It's your host, Kobe Manzo. This is D1R 197, highlighted by two incredible guests. First of all, Rontavious Farmer, the running back out of NAIA St. Thomas University down in Miami Gardens, Florida. He is now the all-time collegiate rushing leader in the state of Florida. All-time. Pretty lofty award right there. He has a lot of other accolades to go with that one. We'll talk with him. And later on in the episode, from Northwood, the former Albion defensive back, Stephen Douglas, joins the show, the Timberwolf, who put on an incredible pro day performance as of late. So those two will be on a part of the show tonight, the night of April 7th. Otherwise, tonight, we've got D2 teams playing each other in spring games. A little bit of a D1 twist. You had heard probably, if you're on the Twitter space, Deion Sanders from Colorado, Fran Brown from Syracuse, trying to make kind of a spring game atmosphere and environment happen at the D1 level was shut down. It's pretty cool. We get to highlight a lot of different Division II teams that are taking advantage of new legislation and actually playing a different opponent this spring. So we'll talk about that. We also have two small school players that have earned some CFL opportunities I want to highlight. And then I think we'll save it till next week. Or next week, we're going to talk about some of the best week one matchups in D3 football. So if there are, we already got quite a list going, but if there are some good ones that you want us to cover, comment that below. Send us a DM, whatever works. But this is D1R 197. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget timestamps, video chapters, bottom of the screen right there. They're in the description if you're on a Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are listening. Follow us on the socials. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get into that first guest conversation with Tay. Joining the show tonight, consensus All-American at St. Thomas down in Miami Gardens. He's already garnered interest from some NFL scouts after pretty awesome pro day. I think I can say that. That's safe. He is the all-time college rushing leader in the state of Florida, Rontavious Farmer. Tay, what's up, man?
What's good? What's good?
Dude, that is a ridiculous title, and that's one that I think I did a triple take at when they originally posted that because I wasn't familiar with your game before this season. I'll be the first one to say that. I'm glad that we got to cover it in your last season. I don't know what stopped me from seeing it beforehand. That's it, man. It was just an awesome year to follow along with you, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
That has been ridiculous. But, to start off, hometown player in a sense from what I could gather, right? From Palm Bay, just a few hours south of St. Thomas. What made you stay close to home with the Bobcats?
My recruiting process was kind of like slow because of COVID. That was my senior year.
Yeah.
COVID, COVID, no schools to come talk to you in person, so it was kind of hard. And then I transferred my senior year, so everything just happened at once. So I was just like, you know what I'm saying? I looked at my offers. I was getting mostly NAIAs. I had a D2 at Lake Erie. I was going to go to Lake Erie at D2. It was either that or St. Thomas. But I came and took a trip down here, and I was like, Miami, Florida, football in Miami, Florida, or football in where's Lake Erie? Like, it's somewhere cold. It's somewhere cold. I'm not going there, so we might as well just make the best of my opportunity here. Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, like, I don't regret it. Like, I'm glad I actually chose to come here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lake Erie's in Ohio up here, by the way. It's much closer to my neck of the woods.
No way I go there.
Yeah, it's a little different than Miami Gardens. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Way. But it's definitely worked out for you, brother. And I rattled off a few of the accolades at the beginning, right? But that one, the being at top of that list for the rushing leaders coming out of your state at the college level, that has to sit on top of that list. That is a massive deal. When did that start to become, when you started to become aware that was going to be a possibility? And then when you get that achievement, what does that do to help put you and your team really on the map?
I ain't gonna lie, the end of my junior year, because I was thinking about transferring, going D1. Like, I was like, I'm finna bet on myself. And then I thought about it, like, I got to do something to just make a statement and just make my name, like, live from 10 years from now. So I looked at my stats, and then the person before me that I broke it, he was at Kaiser, Marquise Burgess.
Yep.
Phenomenal career. So I'm like, whoa, like, I'm 1,500 away. No, I'm 600 yards away from him to break the record, and then I'm 1,500 to break the NAIA all-time record. So I'm like, boom, let me try to go do both. Like, this would be legendary. Like,
yeah,
no way scouts won't see this. So boom, that week leading up, I'm just thinking, like, during that week, I was 5 yards away. I want this to be like an 80-yard touchdown first time I touch the ball. Like, this is going to be legendary.
The play to break it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I ended up breaking it. And I think that just really, like, solidified my name because everybody was saying, oh, well, he played NAIA. Like, what does he really bring to the table? Like, what are his accolades? Like you said, that's really at the top of for me personally, that's, like, at the top of my accolades. And I feel like a lot of people, like, just really saw that and was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, who is this kid? And that's just making more attention go to the school. And not even just football, but the school in general. Like, there's a lot of recruits that come here based off people's production. And a lot of kids always say when they look up to me, like, appreciate it for putting the school on the map. So I feel like that played a big part in just not even just football, but like in general for St. Thomas University.
Well, there's a blueprint, right? If you go somewhere and you're the first person to go break these records or have this level of production, that's different. And there's something to be said for those kind of trailblazers or someone who goes and does it for the first time. But for you to see from a high school level, you see someone at the college level that can achieve these things in a system under a coaching staff in this conference, and you can see yourself in their shoes. That's a whole nother level of empowerment. And for this program, you know, the legacy of this team, back-to-back playoff runs for you guys, all from a program that started just 6 years ago, right? You talk about the recency of this program, the way you guys have been able to spring on the map, which, by the way, seems to be a common thread down there in Florida. When you look down there at West Florida and Kaiser, some of these other squads that had been able to get to the top of the mountain very, very quickly, how much pride is it, you know, given you are a part of this group to start put this team on the map and put them in the place they are today?
That was one of my goals coming here because before I got here, I think there were 2 seasons in and they had losing records, losing records for the season, like 4-6, 4-5. I'm like, I know my talent can change the whole program. That's just the type of confidence I have. So for me to come here and do that, it's just like me proving my point. Like, people already feel like I'm not good enough in general. Like, I got a lot of haters that really don't think I'm good at football. So for me to come here and play my part and do my part to change the whole program around from 4 years later is like, it means a lot because, like, I was one of the ones to do it. That's always been my motto, like, be one of the first ones to do something great at wherever you at.
Yeah, wherever you're at. And you go back to talking about that, maybe that want for a while to go and show your film and get some film on at the D1 level and show yourself and maybe prove to yourself and to others the stuff that you already know. Now, when you talk about that confidence, that certainly wasn't the issue. It wasn't that you weren't confident enough to go play with the best of the best and try and move up to a major conference. When did you kind of put that to the side and prioritize? You talk about legacy and staying power and some of the things that you're able to establish at this program and also across the country. You're talking about these records are more than just St. Thomas records. When was that moment of maybe putting that confidence and some of those other pieces to the side and saying, hey, my impact here could be generational and I have a chance to accomplish something really special? When did you start to take that maybe a little bit differently, and how much did your team have to play in that decision?
I think a couple years, so probably after my sophomore year, I let a lot of people know, like, I wanted to leave, right? I wanted to go bet on myself, and then I ended up staying. And then really, like, that next season, that next spring, when on commit day, when everybody was committing, like people from high school, it was people from my county, like it was like 6 people from my county committed to St. Thomas, and they all played, like, I played a part in all of their recruiting, if you know what I'm saying,
cool.
If that makes sense. So it's like for me to, like, have an impact on somebody else's decision, no matter what, even if we're at the bottom, since we're NAIA, we're not D2, D3, or D1, that meant a lot because it's like, dang, if I could leave a legacy and I'm only, a sophomore, like, imagine what I could do a couple more years down the road while having more success and while potentially getting NFL scouts to come to the school and scout me and other players. So, and I feel like that played a big part too last season. Last season, when NFL scouts always came to our practices, we used to post it on Instagram, and I feel like that plays a part in recruiting because who doesn't want to get scouted by the NFL, like, you know what I'm saying? And for them to come to an NAIA that's only in their 6th year of the program, like, that's crazy. So I take that to the chin. Like, I really feel like I empowered that decision for me to stay here, and it's really helping.
Yeah, and you attract a lot of that attention, of course, but you don't go to the playoffs twice in a row without other talent on that team. So that also brings in, say someone comes to practice to come get a look at you and they would do some evaluating. They might stay because of some other people on that roster too. And you guys have a lot of talent, on that roster. But let's talk about the pro day performance from you though, right? And go back to that confidence. If you weren't already on the big board, you certainly had a chance to solidify your spot there with a lot of different teams and organizations. Turn some heads over there at FIU. Talk me through that day.
That day, man, obviously I was going there with a game day mindset. Like, I'm finna kill everything. They let me into this pro day, I'm finna kill everything. But me personally, I feel like I could have did way better. But like for me to like I had the fastest 40-yard dash. It was like a 4.5 flat. But I know I'm better than that. So for me to see that, it's only like my potential is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then just in general, I felt like I made a name for myself because a lot of people like, who is this from St. Thomas? Oh, this the one that broke all the records. Let's see what he could really do. And I feel like I did great because I got the time to talk to a couple NFL scouts. Like coming from NAIA, that's rare. So I already won half the battle. Now all I gotta do is just put the final pieces together, and hopefully I'll end up on the team soon. So I feel like my pro day went good in a way.
Yeah. Achieved the first step of what you set out to do, although knowing that your ceiling's even higher, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. But now you get an even better shot, dude. On a local pro day with the Dolphins, that's got to be, I would say, the next step, but we're going to make it even bigger because that feels like more of a leap than a next step for you, and I think that's pretty appropriate to say, man.
Yes, sir. I'm ready for that, man. I'm just going to go in here. Nothing's going to change for me confidence-wise. I'm going to go in there knowing I'm the best player, whatever position, I'm the best here, and I'm going to show them why.
And you talk about your mental, even getting the invite and getting through the door there, that has to double down and reinforce for you of like, yes, I've always felt this way about myself, but now like that stamps it, right? That stamps it, and that obviously I've always believed that, but now I've got people from some of these high-level organizations that are vouching for me to get and open these doors for me and get me here so they can evaluate me. That's just got to make you double down on yourself in an instance like this, I imagine.
Sure, man. I ain't gonna lie. It's just really a blessing because like everything I pray for is getting answered right in front of my eyes. So I'm trying not to take it for granted. Like even though it's something big, but I'm trying to go in there level-headed. You know what I'm saying? Go out there, it's just another day, be myself. But at the end of the day, like I definitely agree. Like this is big. It's just like I got to handle up, and whatever happens after that happens.
Yeah, because I'm sure the pressure from you is obviously you want to prepare the right way, but you don't want to make it too big in your head.
Yeah,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
You
like,
want to prepare the right
really
way. You want to prepare the same
but
way. You've said that a couple times. I think you're right on the ball.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Now, what have the initial talks been like with some of the reps from those pro teams at some of these events? You know, where do they have you slated? What's the outlook from you and your camp on, you know, where you see yourself ending up here in a few months?
I can't say too much, but I definitely
for sure. Yeah, I mean, ain't go get you in trouble out here. Just, you know what I'm saying? Come on.
It might be crazy to a lot of people, but I feel like I could get drafted at least 7th round. Like I'm projected to be 7th round right now. And for me to be even mentioned in an NFL draft, coming from around that, it's already like I want half the battle. Like I shouldn't even be. We being real, a 6-year program, NAIA, I shouldn't be getting mentioned. But for me to even be in those type of conversations, I'm already thankful. Yep. So basically, I'm just gonna go in the draft. Like the draft days come, I'm obviously watch all 3 days, and whenever that phone ring, I'm gonna be thankful wherever I go, whenever. I'm ready to go right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm just thankful for whatever happens.
If your name gets called, it's a blessing. You know, if it gets called after the fact, just as much so, right? All you need is an opportunity, brother.
All I need is opportunity.
Yep. I love that. I love that. How do you feel, you know, going back to playing at St. Thomas, playing at this level, the NAIA level for one, and the Sun Conference too? How do you feel that prepared you for the stage, getting a shot at the pros?
Well, for me personally, I feel like it prepared me in a good way because me being as dominant as I am, I can show scouts that I know how to like perform against pressure and perform against certain defenses because for me to be, obviously, I'm good for real at football. A lot of teams scout for me. A lot of teams stack the box to slow down the run. And it's proof that I'm still getting at least 130 plus a game. Like you could look it up if you think I'm lying. So for scouts, I feel like when scouts see that, it's like, whoa, like, okay, he's already in NAIA. Now, if he think he's really legit, let's see if he can really put up numbers. And my numbers speak for themselves, obviously, all the accolades. So I feel like that they really, me going against, like, our conference, we don't have a sorry conference. Our conference is good. So for me to put up good numbers against good teams in the conference, to really tell it all.
That's got to be a big piece of, you kind of mentioned it right there, in that these teams, it's not the first time they're playing you. They've played you for years. They know exactly what they're getting when they play you, and they're still maybe unable to limit your production. I have to imagine that's a big piece going into these conversations.
For sure. But, I mean, film don't lie, numbers don't lie. And I got both, so.
Men lie, women lie. Numbers don't.
For sure.
Numbers do not, man. But no, I'm really excited for you. Whatever this next step looks like for you, man, definitely will be tuned in, following along, and can't say enough how much I've enjoyed having you on the show, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your night, Tay. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. You too.
Okay, big thank you to Tay for joining the show tonight. Now we're going to switch gears, move over to the Division II scene, And if you guys aren't familiar, there were legislation just passed a few years ago to allow this. We're talking about two teams playing each other for their actual spring game as opposed to it being an inter-squad scrimmage. This is the actual piece of legislation here. It says, quote, permits a football team to scrimmage against a four-year college during its spring practice period as one of its 3 permissible 11-on-11 scrimmages outside the playing season. The scrimmage has to occur on or after the 10th day of the spring practice period, allowing time for student athletes to become acclimated to full contact. So, really cool piece of legislation. Now, the news recently has been based around Colorado and Syracuse with Deion Sanders, Fran Brown, respectively, trying to make this happen with their spring game at the D1 level. This is how this conversation got started.
Spring game will be televised. ESPN2 will broadcast spring game on the 19th. We got to sell this thing out and pack this thing because the way the trend is going, you never know if this is going to be the last spring game. I don't believe in that. I don't really want to condone that. I would like to play the spring. Actually, I'd like to play against another team in the spring. That's what I'm trying to do right now, to have it competitive. Playing against your own guys kind of get monotonous, and you really can't tell the level of your guys because, you know, it's the same old, same old. Everybody kind of know each other towards the end. I would like to style it like the pros. I would like to practice against someone for a few days, then you have the spring game. And I think the public will be satisfied with that tremendously. I think it's a tremendous idea. Yeah, I've told those personnel who should understand that it's a tremendous idea. Spring game.
So that's the original remark here. The video on Twitter, courtesy of CFB on Fox there. Thank you for that video post. And you see in the post there, Fran Brown had at Deion Sanders on X/Twitter. He says, we'll come to Boulder for 3 days. So Syracuse proposing they would come to Boulder, Colorado for 3 days, do a joint practice type deal with the Buffaloes over there. And then at the end of that, it would culminate in a spring game between the two squads. Now, it didn't work out. The NCAA did end up shutting this down. And video here, the response from Fran Brown responding to the NCAA shutting down the idea of the video, courtesy of Ashley Wensk on Twitter. This is what the leader of Syracuse had to say following the NCAA ruling that would not permit them to have this proposed spring game.
We should have just told Coach Belichick and Bill O'Brien to come up with it, and then they would have let them do it, and then it would have all went right. We shouldn't have been the first two dudes to say, you know, damn well they wasn't about to let Coach Prime Time and Fran Brown be the first two guys to do it. It was over their dead bodies, so that wasn't happening that way. I'm just messing with you, NCAA. Don't get all mad and call my AD and try to find me. I'm literally joking. But I think that they were headed in the right direction, right? And they had all the right reasons. It wouldn't have gave everybody the same opportunity, right? It would have been a little advantage because, and it wasn't about us being able to practice, because us practicing together would have only limited the amount of people on the field. It would have been 11 on the field now instead of, well, we go 2 spots, so it's 44. So now instead of that, it would have been 11 going at a time, right? The financial literacy stuff that me and Coach Prime was talking about being able to do would have been something that these kids would have been take from them for a long time. And then we was going to have it set up where our study hall was going to be together. Guys was going to be in there doing work and things of that nature. So we were trying to build like a full family more so than just, hey, the spring game was going to do that. That would have been a cool event at the spring game, but it was more so about this spring ball thing. Everyone's trying to like fade away from it. They don't want everyone to see it. So we're trying to bring some light to it to say like, hey, this is a huge event, right? This would have been a huge fight like going on. You'd have been able to see us play them on April the 18th, the day before Easter in Colorado. Like, everything would have sold out, right? So you could have been able to look forward to that. You could get.
So he continues for a little bit longer, but you get the gist of his sentiment there, and he starts off with a joke and backpedals a little bit with the NCAA. But when you hear more about what was maybe in the works here, you're talking about a Remember the Titans-esque scene here, where you've got these guys together for 3 days, maybe partnering up with someone on the other team. Their study halls are together. They're doing financial literacy classes. These other things outside of football, maybe to build this level or sense of camaraderie, and then to go and compete on the 18th is a culmination of that. So kind of an interesting deal from the D1 level. I think it sets the scene for our Division II conversation quite nicely. And next year is definitely in the question for D1. And I'm sure a lot of coaches will push this, especially once they've seen it really enacted at the Division II level, to see, why can't we do this? There's other teams in the NCAA doing that at a lower division. But D2 teams, they're ready to do it now. There's no waiting, no grace period for D2 squads. And we've got a couple big-time D2 programs that will be taking advantage of this ruling this spring. The first two that I'd like to talk about right here, we've got CSU Pueblo and West Texas A&M. This is from Coach Lynn here. He says, D2 football getting it done. Colorado State Pueblo and West Texas A&M is competing in a spring scrimmage this spring. Appreciate Doug Lipinski and Paul Pinsky for making this happen, the respective athletic directors there from the two institutions. So we know those two universities will face off. CSU Pueblo, the reigning 1 seed from Super Region 4, they have had a lot of success as of late, winning the RMAC last year, taking that next step over Colorado Mines. You look at a West Texas A&M team that is always competitive in the Lone Star Conference, and that makes for some really good spring football, is what I can certainly imagine. But to keep things moving, in the spirit of some cross-conference competition, we've got another one, this time between the MIAA and the GAC. How about Central Oklahoma and Southern Nazarene getting together in Edmond, Oklahoma? Right here is the official announcement from UCO. They announced their spring game against Southern Nazarene. It'll be Thursday, April 17th in Edmond. They've never played an official football game. These two schools, they did get together in March of 2021 for another spring exhibition following the canceled 2020 season. So some of those schools did go in the spring and try to get some type of competition together because they missed that fall season. That's happened here. But these schools have never actually played a real sanctioned regulation game against each other. And I think that makes for an interesting matchup, right? It gives a chance for, and we'll talk about later some of the reasons why these are beneficial. So I'll save it for that. We got a couple other ones to talk about. This one is a little bit interesting. You heard Dion and Fran respectively talk about the pro style, the NFL style of these quote-unquote joint practices. That's exactly how Upper Iowa and Winona State are branding their spring game, a.k.a. joint practice. That's April 12th. Winona State will take on Upper Iowa. Here's the release right here. They'll be hosting Winona State. Upper Iowa will at a joint practice on April 12th with the annual spring raffle draw to follow. So, again, getting more people to show up and take part in this is obviously a big piece of that. And the interesting part of this is that it's branded as a joint practice instead of a spring game. So you can imagine the structure of said day will probably be much different than a typical quote-unquote spring game. The last one that at least I could find, of course, because, well, I work at Northern, for those of you who don't know, but Northern Michigan playing host to Minnesota Duluth in the Superior Dome on April 12th as well. This will be, from what I can tell, maybe a more traditional spring game, but I guess we'll see how it's run. Minnesota Duluth, obviously coming off of some pretty successful seasons, have maybe disappointed when it comes to the later part of the season. The NSIC has been so competitive. Northern Michigan on the opposite end of that spectrum. These two teams did get together and have played in both 2023 and 2024 with the Bulldogs taking both those contests. But again, they're no longer on the schedule for either of these guys, so there's not any giveaways, so to speak. Should be a good benefit for both these teams, net benefit to get together and have some of these competitions. But what are the benefits of these spring scrimmages? I think one, the most obvious, is giving players a quote-unquote real game type look instead of practicing, continuing to go against the same guys that they know all the tendencies of. Right? If you're a defensive back and you're going against a wide receiver and you've studied his route tree and you know all of his movements and his tendencies and his little ticks and the way that he operates, it's going to be a lot easier for you to cover him. And that can be good from a wide receiver perspective. If the DB knows everything about you, you have to work that much harder to get open. But in this quote-unquote real game environment where the other guy doesn't have this abundance of film potentially to scout and to study you, you can go out there and get maybe more of a real look, try out some new and go back to maybe some old technique and try out some different moves and combinations, some different releases, some hand placement. Across the board, it's just good to play against someone in a different colored jersey. The other piece of that I think comes with the territory as well, common sense, is getting people to show up and support, right? Branding one of these games against a different opponent as opposed to saying, hey, we're going to inter-squad, we're going to do a green and gold game or a blue and white game, whatever it is. I think that's going to get people to hopefully just get through the door. And for a lot of spring games, that's something that they just lack. It's hard to get people excited about these spring games. Finally, though, I think it gives coaches a better look at designing against potentially a different scheme, right? When you go against, even if you're doing a scout team in practice and you've got your guys trying to emulate a different offense or defense and they're doing their best in the scout team, it's not going to be the same. And if you are one of the teams that still does ones-on-ones in practice, which most do, but it's kind of falling off here. If you're one of those teams that does ones-on-ones, one's defense and one offense against each other, you're always going to be going against that same look, especially from an offensive perspective, that same kind of defensive front with a little bit of wrinkles, same blitz packages, those kind of things. If you get a chance to go and mix that up, Get a little variety. Give your front five, that offensive line, give your skill position players, give your quarterback some different looks. That can be incredibly beneficial for especially a young team, but any team in general, just to get a little bit more of that experience. So excited to see what that looks like this spring. With that being said, our last piece here, we got two guys that have signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers out of the small school realm in the CFL. The first of which, right here, Matt Kickle out of Aurora. He was named an AP First Team All-American this year, D3 Football First Team All-American, First Team All-Region, NACC First Team All-Conference, and a Scholar Athlete. The dude has done it all. The senior offensive lineman assigned to play professionally in Winnipeg. Kudos to him. The Spartans over there in Aurora have a history of some really good football, a lot of playoff football over there in Aurora. They've ended some good seasons for some other quality teams. So excited to see what Mr. Kickle does there in the CFL. And moving on back up to Division II, a man that I think most of you should be familiar with if you follow D2 football, Dre Hall, the defensive lineman from Harding over there in Searcy, Arkansas, also signing with the Blue Bombers. Dre finished his career with 32 TFLs, 25 of those taking on the quarterback for sacks. He had 11 sacks in his junior year alone. This guy has had a lot of production in his collegiate career. He's 6'1", 245 pounds. He stepped up in some big games, and I think for me, going back and watching recently that 2023 Grand Valley State game in the playoffs, right, where it was a literal slugfest, and it was just whoever had the ball last. Dre, in that game, 2 sacks, multiple TFLs outside of that, was an impact player when they needed him to step up against a very, very talented Grand Valley State team. It ended up being a big reason why they came out on top of that one. So a lot of things to be excited about for those two, but without further ado, let's get into that conversation with Stevie. Close this thing off. Also joining the show tonight, a former D3 product that made the jump to D2. He's been a standout playmaker for Northwood in the defensive backfield. Now, though, he's trying to make a name for himself on the professional scene. Stephen Douglas. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Dude, excited to get you on here. And you're kind of an exciting story. And we don't get a ton of these. You know, you follow your head coach, Coach B, up to Northwood. And I think we start right there. You know, talk about that move on paper. Yeah, D3 to D2, an obvious choice. I think everyone kind of sees that from the outside perspective. Was it that way, making the change? Was there any kind of uneasiness with that?
It definitely was crazy. Like, I was going back and forth because I didn't officially enter the portal until that Thursday before classes started because I was going back and forth on the matter. And then I finally decided to pull the trigger. So I had like 3 days. I'm from Colorado, so I drove to Albion, got all my stuff, and then went up to Midland, and here we are.
Dude, just like that. And
yeah,
a lot of times the move's not that quick. A lot of times it could be more of a drawn out process, but glad to hear, obviously, with, you know, following coach over there, that makes it maybe a little bit more seamless. But
oh, for sure.
You know,
yeah.
When you move over there, how are you, and you weren't the only one from Albion to make that move either, obviously. How are you and those guys viewed in that time? Because you come over with a new coach, probably a largely new staff. You do keep some pieces on, but you could have a chance there to have a real split in a locker room of some guys that are coming over that inevitably are going to take some jobs, and some guys who had been there for a couple of years, maybe inside of that program. There's an opportunity for a split there, and that could be really bad for a locker room. How did you guys try to avoid that?
I would say that, honestly, it wasn't that big of a split because, like, I came over in that winter for the spring of 2023. Me and Ricky Pearson did. Yeah. And then all the other Albion guys came back over in the fall once they graduated and stuff like that. So me and Ricky were the first two there. And we were welcomed with open arms. The Northwood team took a liking to all, like, Coach B and Coach Sweeney, who came from Albion, and then all the new other guys who came in. So we were welcomed with open arms, and then just establishing the culture of just, like, getting after it and showing them what, you know, a high-level college football program can be, you know, with the success that we had at Albion.
Absolutely, man. You get thrust right into a pretty big role off the rip. And I think I use air quotes when I say, like, your acclimation period, because, you know, you guys would be the only ones that know what the difference is there. But your acclimation period was short. Like, you got thrown right into that. Now, of course, you get the spring with these guys to compete with them and you know, to go through the process. But as far as lining it up against someone in a different color jersey, that was right away in the fall. You hit the ground running. You know, when you call it that, what stood out to be a difference for you, if any, playing in the GMAC as opposed to the MIAA?
I mean, I would say the biggest difference would just be the size of the O-linemen, especially. The running backs run a lot harder at D2 level. And I'm guessing, you know, as you move up through the ranks. Speed-wise, it wasn't nothing crazy for me. But I would just say, yeah, like, offensive lineman size and, like, how hard the running backs run for sure. But it was nothing too crazy that I couldn't handle. Okay,
fair enough. No big adjustments from you when it came to your play style?
No, not at all. Especially with like our D backs coach and defense coordinator Justin Sweeney. He came from Albion too, so like the playbook wasn't really nothing big any difference. We added stuff obviously, but the basics, I've already had it.
You kind of already mentioned it, but you come from a really successful program at the D3 level at Albion, coming into a program at Northwood where, to be honest, had experienced a lot of mediocrity. There were wins there, but they were really struggling to get kind of over that 500 mark. And you kind of said it, like coming in to show these guys some of the things that it takes to be a quote-unquote, you talked about a successful program. What are some of those habits, the other traits you try to help bring into that locker room?
I would say the biggest thing is like what Coach B preaches to our team. It's called the Northwood Way. And first point of it is just being a better man. So we were just trying to create better people on and off the field. And I would just say the big culture is like a workman-like mentality, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We have a quote called PTC, or punch the clock. So whenever our time card's up, like we go punch the clock when we get on the field.
I like that.
And we're just trying to get after it.
I like that, dude. I like that. And you go out there, you prove yourself, you produce your first year with the team, right? You felt like, at least looking from an outside perspective, of course, knowing some guys down there, I get to tune in and watch some of the games, but it felt like right from the jump, you went out there and produced. And that quote-unquote acclimation period we talked about, that didn't last very long. How do you feel you cemented yourself early on?
Pretty good, yeah. Obviously, like being there for spring ball definitely helped, just getting around the guys,
Sure.
getting close with everyone, up to speed with everything, and especially just being in a different environment. Obviously, it was a big change leaving all my friends and buddies, from Albion, but I'm thankful for the spring getting there. And just like once we got to summer and fall, like I was ready to go to make plays.
Yeah. Was there a sense of feeling, not maybe external pressure, but internally for sure, having a sense of proving yourself, whether it be to the guys you're playing with and against?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would especially just say like coming from Northwood, like I was stressing out a little too much about like what people think about me, especially coming with the coach and stuff like that. And like the biggest thing I was told is just like, don't worry about what other people think of you. Just, be yourself, be that same dude that you have been, and, just play football.
Amen. That's easier said than done sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Coming there with a whole group of guys, you're inevitably going to take someone's job. And so sometimes that can be viewed in a pretty tough light. But, this season, you don't play in, less than half the amount of games as the year before. You maybe don't have the impact on the field that you're striving to have. Were there moments like there when you talk about still going out trying to make an impact? Did the pro day make that so much more important to put some of those numbers on tape, so to speak, and put some of those numbers down to remind people of what you knew you were already capable of?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, only playing in 4.5 games, that hurt me a lot. And I was like, I wasn't freaked out about it, but I was like, I got to put on a show at pro day. Thankfully, I put up some solid numbers. I wasn't completely healthy yet. Thankfully, I am right now, but putting up the numbers I did for where I was at body-wise, I was happy with myself, and just knowing that, how coaches are going to see me, especially coming off an injury like that, having surgery, and just being able to show them like, hey, like I'm completely fine. I'm still the same player, if not better, that I am.
Yeah. And from my perspective, you did all right, dude. Those numbers are a little bit better than all right. I think you've opened a lot of eyes. Was the interest, was kind of the level of that, did that pick up immediately in terms of more contract, getting some serious interest after that pro day? How's that work?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I was only time that I've liked receiving calls from unknown numbers. That's for sure.
That's good.
I like that. I got to put it.
Yeah, no, you're definitely like every time that thing rings, you're probably on it immediately.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You not want to be the guy.
I'm not training.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy to miss one of those. And then, right after that, on the tail end of that, you sign with Key Player Management. What are some of the challenges of finding representation for a guy with a small school background? Walk me through that timeline.
So I got extremely lucky. So Greg Thompson, he reached out. He's my agent for Key Player Management. He reached out to me in May. And that's only because there's this guy, Steeler Leap. Shout out Steeler Leap. He plays in Northwood.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a family friend. And so he told Greg about me, and then Greg reached out to me, and then he followed me throughout the season. I'm very super thankful for it, especially, with me being hurt, a lot of people would probably just like stop talking to me, not want to take a chance, but he stuck with me through it all, signed me in December, and, here we are.
Oh yeah, man. If I read it correctly, he's got is it Tyson Bagent way over there too?
Yes, sir.
That's big time, dude. Talk about some D2 royalty.
Yeah. No, he's a dog for sure.
It's pretty sweet, man. So now you talk about that impact of the pro day, starting to pick up a little bit of interest here. How does that affect where you're at right now in terms of, your head's obviously not going to explode, but got to give you a little bit of confidence?
It for sure, yeah. It definitely gives me a little more confidence, especially, like I didn't play, for half the season last
Sure.
year. So just getting the calls every day just gives me that little more juice in training. Like I wake up every morning super thankful for where I'm at. Like I just get to go train all day for football. Like that's the life right there, especially with like having classes online. So just building up the confidence. I'm just ready to play football.
I like that. I like that. We might have to clip that for any potential suitors here later on. But how do you feel looking back, moving up? We talked about that move right up to Northwood, moving up to the D2 level. How do you feel that affected where you're at now? Do you believe you'd have the same interest if you put up the same numbers and the same pro day numbers if you were still at Albion?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously numbers don't lie, but numbers aren't everything, because I feel like, especially where they're coming from, a D2 or D3 school, like always a big question is like, can you play at the level of competition as like
Sure.
all these other guys who came from a Power 5 school?
And with that being said, like a 4.5 is a 4.5, a 4.4 is a 4.4. It doesn't matter who you're running against, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think, numbers wise, I think it would have been the same, but always the question from scouts can be like, can he transition that to play against higher level competition? Which
So
I'll say,
now
hell
flip
yeah.
it back on you. The scout asks you that. What do you hit him with right away? What's the go-to?
Oh, if you ask me that, I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like I always pride myself on being, just being able to step up in big games, when my team needs me. And I'm a very competitive person. I feel like if you want to play at, the highest level, you have to be a super competitive person and just will do whatever it takes to win.
I like that. I like that. I'm taking notes here, getting you ready. That's what we should turn this into, is like, what is it, like draft practice interviews. Just start ripping you guys with all these hard hitters. And then by the time you get to the actual interview, it's like a cakewalk.
Literally, great practice.
Yeah. So what is the what's the timeline look like for you now, between now and then, like draft, free agency, of course, whenever things start to pick up? What's your day-to-day look like besides probably rewatching Invincible?
Love Invincible so much. I know that's a Drew question right there. I love that. But I do, like, I'm a very big guy on structure. So like I wake up, I eat the same thing every day. Go to training till 9. I'm there 9:20 to like 1:30, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Work my butt off, speed training. Then we have lifting. Get back, I have online classes, so I do my 3 classes, and then eat, relax, play Madden. But I'm staying here. I'm right now training at still Impact Sports Performance with Jim Kalesbo and everyone else. So shout out to those guys. Great. I know Micah went there too. We had a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He got everyone prepared. So staying there till the draft. And then once the draft happens, and figure out where, like, being a priority free agent, stuff like that. I drive home to Colorado, get all my stuff, and then go wherever I'm needed.
Absolutely, dude. The right mindset to have. What does that do to be around that group of guys who, I mean, talk about literally in about as close to the same shoes as you could be, training in that same spot, all looking towards a very similar goal?
It's awesome. It's basically like being on another football team is like what
Okay.
I'll say. Because once pro days happened, some of the guys stayed to keep training, some of them went away, and just like it was sad at the end, because you're with those dudes 5 days a week, grinding, everyone trying to get the same goal, get better every day, and just pushing each other. So it's a very big brotherhood that we made there, and like I'll have those connections for life because I love those dudes.
That's really cool, because you guys don't, in the grand scheme of things, you don't spend a ton of time with each other. It's a pretty abbreviated time span.
Yeah.
But in that time that you're with each other, you see a lot of each other because you're around so often, and all, obviously uber competitive type humans who are, getting after it. But that's all I got for you, brother. Super excited. Whatever the next step is for you, I'm pulling for you for sure.
I appreciate it a lot, man.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your night, man. Keep after it.
Thank you, you too.